In the early morning of August 13th, 2018, Shanann Watts arrived home in Frederick, Colorado. She had just returned from a business trip. Stepping out of her friend's vehicle and walking toward the front door. It was quiet, still dark. Her two daughters, Bella and Celeste, were supposed to be asleep inside. That night would be the last anyone would see Shanann alive. Just hours later, her husband, Chris Watts, would begin spinning a web of lies that would captivate and horrify the world. Chris and Shanann had always seemed like the perfect couple. Chris was quiet and soft-spoken, a technician who kept to himself. Shanann was full of life, outgoing, active on social media, always documenting her family's life. They lived in a picturesque two-story home in a quiet suburban neighborhood. They had two beautiful daughters, Bella, a sweet, sensitive 4-year-old, and Celeste, a fiery, energetic 3-year-old. Shanann was also 15 weeks pregnant with a baby boy they had already named Nico. On the outside, they were the American dream, but behind closed doors, trouble was brewing. Their finances were in shambles. They had filed for bankruptcy in 2015. Arguments had grown more frequent, and unbeknownst to Shanann, Chris had started seeing another woman, Nicole Kessinger, a co-worker he met at Anadarko Petroleum. As Shanann worked to hold the family together, Chris was slipping away. He began working out more, caring more about his appearance, distancing himself emotionally to friends and family. He appeared detached, almost robotic. Shanann grew suspicious. She messaged her friends, telling them something didn't feel right. She feared Chris was cheating. She was scared, afraid of losing her husband, afraid of being abandoned with 3 children. On the morning of August 13th, Shanann missed her OB/GYN appointment. Her phone went unanswered. She didn't return calls or texts. Her friend, Nicole Atkinson, grew worried. She contacted the police and drove to the Watts home. Chris arrived a short time later. His demeanor was strange. He was calm, expressionless. He let the officers into the house, showed them Shanann's phone, her purse, her medication, all still there. But there were no signs of struggle, no signs of the girls, no Shanann. Later that day, Chris went on television. He stood on his front lawn, pleading for his wife and daughters to come home. Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back, he said. If someone has them, just bring them back. But the public saw through him. Something was off. He looked too calm, too rehearsed. Behind the scenes, police had already begun digging. They searched Chris's phone. They discovered his affair with Nicole Kessinger. When she was questioned, Nicole claimed she had no idea Shanann was pregnant or that Chris was still with her. She told police she had ended things when she found out. On August 15th, just 2 days after Shanann's disappearance, Chris took a polygraph test. He failed. In a separate room, investigators pressed him. He was caught in a lie. He had nowhere to run. At first, Chris claimed Shanann had killed their daughters in a fit of rage and that he killed her in retaliation. But as the interrogation continued, Chris broke down. And then he told the truth. Chris said he strangled Shanann in their bedroom after an argument. He then wrapped her body in a sheet, dragged it down the stairs, and placed it in the back of his work truck. His daughters were still alive. He drove them, along with their mother's body, to an oil site owned by his employer. There in a remote field, he smothered both girls, first Celeste and Bella, and disposed of their bodies in separate oil tanks. He buried Shanann in a shallow grave nearby. Chris Watts had murdered his entire family, all for a new life with his mistress. The details horrified investigators and the public alike. Bella, the eldest daughter, had fought back. Chris would later admit that she had pleaded for her life. "Daddy, no," she had said. Those were her last words. The nation was in shock. This wasn't just another murder. This was a father, a husband, a man who murdered his pregnant wife and 2 daughters, coldly, methodically, without remorse. Chris Watts was arrested and charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder. His family stood in court, devastated. Shanann's parents wept as the charges were read aloud. The courtroom was silent as the prosecutor described how Bella and Celeste had been pushed through the narrow openings of the oil tanks, how their bodies were found submerged in crude oil, and how their mother had been buried in a shallow grave nearby. In November 2018, Chris accepted a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. He pleaded guilty to 5 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 3 counts of tampering with a dead body. He was sentenced to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole. He now spends his days in solitary confinement at Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin. He's allowed out of his cell for 1 hour a day. He receives no visits, no phone calls. His name has become synonymous with betrayal and brutality. And yet, the questions still linger. How could a man murder his own children? How could he look his daughters in the eyes and then take their lives? Psychologists have debated it endlessly. Some call him a narcissist, incapable of empathy. Others say he suffered a family annihilator psychosis, a twisted belief that his only escape was to erase the life he had created. But no theory will ever explain what truly happened in that house on August 13th. Shanann Watts was 34 years old. Bella Marie Watts was just 4. Celeste Catherine Watts was 3. Baby Nico never got to take his first breath. Their names have become a symbol of justice and a warning of the darkness that can lurk behind even the most polished smiles. In their memory, Shanann's family has worked to raise awareness of domestic violence and emotional abuse. They have asked people to speak up, to look out for warning signs, to never stay silent. The house where the murders took place still stands, but remains empty, haunted not by ghosts, but by the memory of lives taken too soon. And Chris Watts? His story is a reminder that monsters don't always come in the form of strangers. Sometimes they sleep beside us, eat at our tables, smile in our photos, and sometimes they look like the perfect husband, the perfect father, until the truth is revealed and the illusion shatters forever.